All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. I do want to take a couple quick phone calls. People that have been waiting patiently on hold. As I mentioned, you will not find a more interactive show than the Vegas Take. And we are moving to mornings, 9 a.m. to noon. Then our very special guest coming up here, John Brookhagen from Infinity, the Math Institute. We'll take a couple calls on this issue of racism in this country. Let's start off with Scott, who's been waiting. Scott, what's going on? Scott, are you there? Did we lose Scott? I think we lost Scott. All right, we'll take one more call here. Let's go to Seth. Seth, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. What's up, Seth?
Hey, I wanted to understand and clarify here. When Trump originally made that comment, it wasn't directed to those four originally, was it?
It absolutely was. If you look at both sides of the aisle, even Republicans, they know exactly who he was talking about when he referred to these congresswomen.
But that's kind of implied. We all know that he was talking to those four. Okay?
Right.
But when he said those words, I mean, I do believe and I remember that it wasn't specifically to them.
So who do you think he was talking about then?
When you said, hey, bring up a white person who he would say that to or something like that, I think right there just covered everybody. You know,
so you think – so I'm just trying to understand what you're saying, Seth. So your interpretation of the tweets that Trump put out there, you don't think that it was about those four congresswomen. You don't think it was about the squad. And by the way, they did a press conference after those four women.
I know that those are the most inflammatory four, and it was probably directed towards them. But I think, and I could be wrong, but I do remember when he first made that comment, he didn't point them out specifically. He just said
he didn't say their names. He didn't say their names, but I think it was very much so implied who he was talking about. He's never denied that, by the way. He constantly talks about those four women and that chant. And when he talked about Seth, when he talked about Omar in North Carolina, when those bigots decided to chant out "Send her back," he was talking about Omar seconds before.
Right, but that wasn't his original comment. Now, I don't like those four, and I think they do need to go back personally. But
what do you mean? What do you mean, Seth? Hold on. Three out of those four women were born in the United States of America. What are you talking about when you say they do need to go back? Where, to New York? Ocasio-Cortez was born in Brooklyn. What? For all due respect, what are you talking about when you say go back?
I don't like either one. I wouldn't say go back because you're right. Three of the four did.
Well, you just did say it.
The problem is when you say go back, even if because they were born in the United States, the only thing that connects them to those countries is their skin color. So by default, you're bringing race into the equation.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what Trump did. And I thought that was much more racist than the send her back because there could be a number of reasons why people wanted Omar sent back or not in Congress. It should have been kick her out, but send her back wasn't definitively racist. And we talked about that last week.
Can I ask you guys really quick before I go?
Yes.
How do you feel about Omar? Do you think she's a righteous American, or do you think that the things that she's saying are inflammatory?
Listen, me and JD agree on this issue. And Seth, I don't know how long you've been listening to the show, but many a times.
About 10 minutes.
Okay, I can appreciate. Seth, let me be very clear here then, okay? I believe Omar is an anti-Semite. I think she not only has little to no experience, but I think she's an idiot. I think she says dumb things, and I think she is underqualified for that position.
Yeah, Seth, I think she has absolutely no business being a congresswoman.
But Seth, did you notice one thing I didn't say? I didn't say go back to your country. I didn't say send her back. You know what I say? Get her out of office.
And Seth, our opinions are not predicated on the color of her skin or her race. They're predicated on what she does.
I don't believe in that color of the skin thing either. I think in this day and age, racism is only being created by the Democrats.
So what would you say about that 71?
It's definitely being sensationalized and celebrated by the Democrats.
Racism is only created by the Democrats. So you're trying to tell me that there are no Republicans that are racist. Is that what you're saying on this show?
There could be.
There could be?
No,
How about Steve King? Does that name ring a bell to you?
He's clearly a racist. David Duke is clearly a racist.
Seth, how do you make that statement?
On the same side of things, the Black Lives Matter movement, the Black Panthers.
We can go on both sides.
Exactly. There's racism that comes from all angles towards all races.
Seth, how could you say that racism is created by Democrats, with all due respect?
Because it seems like that in this day and age, that, people don't have race problems. But as soon as people want to be victims, they're creating a race problem.
So you don't think there's any race
problem against Mexicans or black people?
Seth, I will say this.
Anybody.
I don't think Democrats are creating race. I do believe that Democrats are turning race into a weapon. I do believe that.
First of all, I'm going to guess that person, Seth, who just called in, is not African American. He's not from another country. He doesn't know what it's like to be the victim of racism, and he just goes on the assumption that Democrats create racism and, the Republicans are just, that is just so ridiculous. How do I even have a conversation with somebody like that? And you know what? He brought up Omar, and he probably thought we were, going to say, oh, she's just great. We love her. No, we're honest on this show. We're always going to be honest. Me and JD don't always agree, but we agree on that. Omar should be out of office. Notice how we didn't say send her back to her country. Notice how we didn't say send her back. No, we didn't do that because we're not racist. That's why. And the people who chant that, in my opinion, are. All right, we're going to switch topics here. I appreciate the call, Seth, but we got to move on to some other important topics, including a big story that came out today in regards to the Clark County School District Superintendent reversing a decision on cutting dean jobs in Las Vegas. This is going to make a lot of people happy, and maybe some people disagree with that. The man we have with us in studio right now, his name is John Brookhagen, friend of the show, and he is in charge of Infinity, the Math Institute, which is a fantastic school to sign up. Bring your kids out there if they're having troubles with math. Really, even if they're not having trouble, certainly let's just say they're getting straight B's, right, John? Let's get them to an A, right?
To be honest,
thanks for being
first
here.
First of all, thanks again for having me, and congratulations on the big time switch. I'm really excited with you guys.
Appreciate that.
Really excited to be a small part of the transition.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'm actually pretty proud to announce this. John Brookhagen and the Infinity Math Institute was the first ever sponsor for the Vegas Take.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, I believe in you guys.
So thanks for believing
you believe in me. So
absolutely,
no doubt, my man. So what do you think about this story? As far as all these deans, these jobs not being cut, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, there's a lot of aspects to this story. All right. First of all, for those of you who don't know, we have a relatively new superintendent, Jara. All right, and he's basically new to the job, and he's been given. I don't know the ins and outs of these. These are politics, and whether you're talking about your Washington politics or you're talking about CCSD politics,
right?
The regular people, teachers, even the people who work there, they don't really know what's the goings on behind the scenes. Whether there's a cabal or whether there's a deep state, whether wherever you may be talking about. Nonetheless. So he came into this situation, and CCSD is an absolute disaster. I think everybody knows that. I don't care if you're a teacher, you're a student, you're just a radio jock.
It ranks very low as far as a good school district that's getting kids to get some grades and prepare them for college. So yes, I do agree with that assessment.
Yeah,
that's obvious.
So he's been put in this position where he's got no budget whatsoever. Let's start off with this. We remember a couple weeks ago, we had a big trivia contest, right? I got a new one. I'm going to let JD redeem himself here. We're going to have an estimation game. And by the way, just tell the listeners, I watched the tape. JD was not looking up answers on his phone. So he was unfairly disqualified from the game.
You're talking about, for the listeners that don't know, we had John brought a few of his students in studio.
Very smart students.
And we did a little trivia contest. It was me and JD versus these two kids. I'm happy to say that I did make the finals. So I didn't embarrass myself, but I think to an extent JD did embarrass himself. He was the first one out.
I was the first one out, and Brian made sure to let me know about that for about 5 minutes after. But I've lost sleep over this several times. I've grown this new mustache, I think, because of my lack of sleep.
You're looking very Ron Jeremy today, by the way.
100% porn star.
Yeah, you're looking very Ron Jeremy.
There's a lot of ways I can take that, but I'm excited to redeem myself.
Good. Well, we're going to do it again.
Contest number 2.
And I just wanted to let you know, just like the Knights didn't get to move on to round 2 of the Stanley Cup after a horrible call, JD, you're just going to have to suck it up, all right?
Yeah.
All right, anyway, moving on. This is his chance to redeem himself and beat Brian.
Real quickly before, I just want to say we are going to get John Wayne Bobbitt back in studio, who is a former porn star. I want John to tell me if he thinks JD is suited to be a future porn star. That would be a good question for John Wayne Bobbitt, would it not? I think it would.
I don't know. That big, beautiful wedding ring and that big, beautiful wife of his tells me different. But the mustache is screaming, so it's a toss-up.
His wife would be okay with him being a porn star.
This mustache says this guy's got secrets. he's got a different side that nobody knows about.
Those ice blue eyes and that goatee.
And I'm fine with that.
All right, go ahead, John.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So the question for your listeners, for our listeners, for you, for JD, the shop, how much money do you think CCSD spends per year?
Who's guessing first? Oh, you're asking JD.
No, I'm gonna let you guys have 3 more seconds to think about your answer. I want you to come up with an answer before you influence each other, and I want the listeners to think about it.
Yeah.
How much do you think CCSD It is the third largest school district in the country.
Mm-hmm.
How much does CCSD spend per year?
Go ahead,
they're
JD.
always short on money, and we don't have enough teachers, and teachers don't get enough money. How much do you think they spend per year?
My answer was going to be very, very low, but after you just mentioned that, I have to handicap it differently. I'm going to say $80 million.
I'm going to say it's at least double that.
Okay. First of all, Brian is the winner. I didn't bring my sound effects. And he's not even in the ballpark.
I'm going to say $350 million.
Not even in the ballpark.
More than that?
Guess again.
500?
Guess again.
Oh, wow. We're way off.
Is it $1 billion?
Guess again.
It's more than $1 billion?
Guess again.
I'm done guessing. Tell us. I'm confused now. It's
$4.2 billion.
You've got to be kidding me.
$4.2 billion with a B.
So okay, so that is I knew 80 million was too low, but I didn't think it was $1 billion even, let alone $4 billion. Okay, so if that's the case, how is it if they're spending $4.2 billion a year in the Clark County School District, John? How is it possible that the grades just aren't there and they're just not getting the job done? How is that possible?
First, I just want to show JD to confirm.
Oh yeah.
No, we believe you.
I believe this.
We believe you.
Total expenditures $4.2 billion.
So how is that possible then?
And I want to know now. You know, they had this whole dean situation, which we're going to delve into in a lot more detail. But they have this dean position in order to save $17 million.
That's ridiculous.
What is $17 million?
Nothing.
When you're talking about $4.2 billion. And why are there these problems? Why are we having these budget problems? I believe, and I am believing, I'm still considering it because it's going to be a lot of work. But for the Sharp and Shapiro show, and of course to promote Infinity, the Math Institute, I'm considering undertaking a total audit of their finances.
I think they should. I agree.
Well, I'm going to try to do it.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
It's absolutely...
That's outrageous.
Well, the crazy part is most of these schools, they kind of look like prisons.
And run-down prisons at that.
I mean, they look like very, very
well, you're starting to sound like
under-financed prisons.
You're starting to sound like Ocasio-Cortez here.
Oh, they do.
What's going on? Concentration camps.
Yeah,
no, I'm not saying that. I'm not suggesting that. But these schools, they all have bars.
Now, hold on, guys. The average teacher is making what, under $40,000 a year?
No, above. Is 45.
Okay, so that's not.
Let's call it 50, just to keep the numbers easy.
That's still a paycheck to paycheck job, folks.
100.
Yes.
100.
Okay, so come on, man. It's not like these are college professors making $500,000 a year.
No, the teachers are underpaid, and that's it. I mean, that's the bottom line, and the money is being wasted. There are. You would think, first of all, 88% of each school's budget goes towards their staff.
Right.
All right? Now, you got to understand that the teachers in the schools and in each of our children's schools, of all our listeners, their children's schools, there are at least, if not more, twice as many, not administrators, but other staff members that work for the district that are reviewing test scores, that are submitting test scores. A lot of our budget goes towards purchasing standardized tests and stuff like that. You know who's making all the money? The people who are making the most money out of education are the people who create and print and distribute the standardized tests. That's $1 billion industry. And like I said, I'm considering doing this audit where I could be a little bit more specific. But I'm guessing tens of millions of dollars are going towards somebody handing you a box from Amazon with a bunch of standardized tests.
That's staggering. I cannot believe they're spending
$4.2 billion.
What does the average school district pay? Do you have any idea? It's got to be under $1 billion.
No, you got to understand that I mean, obviously, if you have a school district with 3 schools, an elementary, middle, and a high school, I mean, you really can't compare apples and oranges.
I'm just curious what the average school district would pay.
You mentioned it was the 3rd largest district in the United States.
Yeah,
break that down for us. How many schools are there?
I believe, like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I wasn't prepared for these specific hard-hitting questions by Sharp and Shapiro.
I figured I'd get you with one since you got me twice.
Let me look at my phone. There is approximately 15 high schools, 15 to 20 high schools, and then there would be about, 3 times that, maybe 40 middle schools.
But we understand what you're saying. That's outrageous. When you have $4.2 billion and then you're worried about saving $17 million with these deans, it is absurd.
I guess my question is, what would your estimation be on the total enrollment?
Well, that's the thing here. Now, when you're talking about school budgets, they tend to tell you their per pupil funding.
Yeah.
So that way you can compare apples to apples. And the thing I've read is every time I read another article about CCSD, I'm reading about different numbers. You know, one time I'll read an article and they'll talk about spending $6,500 per student.
Yeah.
I'll read another article, they'll talk about $9,800 per student. And I tell my students all this all the time, that you could skew statistics to make your point any way you want. I mean, you could always put the numbers in your favor.
Well, why don't we do this? I mean, we'll open up the phone lines if somebody wants to ask a question about this. What do you guys think about that? The Clark County School District, and by the way, our guest is John Brookhagen from Infinity, the Math Institute. What do you think about this? The Clark County School District spends $4.2 billion, that's right, I said billion, dollars a year. And this has been a long-running issue to try to cut deans at these schools. Now, luckily, the superintendent reversed that decision for the 2019-2020 school year. But what do you think about that? Yeah. Why don't we take some phone calls on this? The number to call is 702-257-5396. Again, if you want to be a part of this conversation, what do you think the Clark County School District is doing wrong? They're spending a lot of money. Where are they going wrong? You must have kids that are in the school district. What do you think about this? What changes do you think the Clark County School District should make? Again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-257-5396.
And while we're waiting for the call bank to fill up, let's give your listeners a little bit more history. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Superintendent Jarrett decided to, in a closed-door meeting, in order to save this $17 million, because there's a $35 million deficit in the budget, they were going to cut all dean positions. And there was an uproar for a multitude of reasons. First of all, who's going to discipline the kids? Because that was the dean's primary job. The assistant principals are in charge of standardized testing and a bunch of school functions. The principal is in charge of everything from the cook schedule to the pay to the supplies. And who is going to do, we are always hearing about all these behavior problems. And is this going to fix the behavior problems? It must exacerbate it. That's number one. But the biggest thing, and a lawsuit was filed against the school district because they made this decision behind closed doors. And this is a decision that has to be made in an open forum at the Board of Trustees meetings. So they filed an injunction. The judge upheld the injunction and put a freeze on the termination of these deans. Now, everybody, or I assume that I am everybody, but maybe I'm not, but I assume that,
yes, you are.
Because they did this behind closed doors, but it doesn't matter if they do it behind closed doors or in an open forum. When these people decide that this is what's best for the district,
right,
that's what's going to happen. And these people putting in this injunction is just wasting more money in lawsuits and lawyers and this and that and the other thing. And either way, they made the decision to get rid of the deans.
Yeah.
Well, then they had this open forum like they were legally bound to do. And everybody, well, again, me, thought this was going to be a rubber stamp. We're going to have the open forum and then, boom, we're going to get rid of the deans like we said. And now we did it the legal way and you can't say boo. Well, they had this meeting. And after an extensive meeting and hearing from a whole bunch of people, they decided not to get rid of the deans. Now, I think this opens up a whole nother can of what is going on with CCSD. Because if they made this decision behind closed doors, and then when getting the adequate counsel from the other people, the board members, the unions, the people who are going to be affected by this, they decided to go another route, well, then it is absolutely horrible that they did this behind closed doors and tried to pull this off when they should have done it in open forum.
And I also want to mention you're a former Clark County School District teacher. That should be known as well. And now, of course, you're running Infinity, the Math Institute. I'll tell you what I want to do here. Why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, we'll take some calls. But we've got to get to TMZ's Mike Babcock. I want to continue this conversation with you on the other side of the break as well. Again, we're joined by John Brookhagen from Infinity, the Math Institute. We're taking your calls at 257-5396. Want to take a quick break? When we come back, though, I want to get to this story because I do think, and I know, John, I know that you'll probably have an opinion when it comes to the second boxer now in the last week that has died in the ring. It is really, really, really sad. So we're going to talk about that with Mike Babcock from TMZ Sports coming up next. And we will continue this conversation on the other side of the break. You're listening to The Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN.